Okay, Gary.
But okay, Gary, this is your podcast.
I know. Welcome back to the hot seat. You are not alone. Today, I know that usually in our episodes we dive into like a topic, but after a couple of episodes together, going through the comments and seeing how you trigger certain individuals, I wanted to actually focus on that a little bit.
Okay. I've got our little agenda here, but yeah, let's dive into it.
I feel like there's a narrative of this controlling husband, and like sensitive, naive wife. I don't know. There's something going on.
Who's the husband and who's the wife in this scenario?
On the internet, you're the controlling, like older husband.
What I just said right now, was that interrupting you? Did I just interrupt you again?
Maybe. Okay. Don't worry, my community's coming for you.
Your police, your army.
You're gonna break it. You're supposed to undo it.
Your army of Karens will come and attack me.
They're not Karens. There's something else.
There's something else. My guess is they're probably not in relationships, but that's a whole different story.
Okay, so let's dive into it because there's been a lot of comments of people getting very triggered by you from our conversations. I'm going to read you just like a couple of them. We don't have to dive into each and every one, but just to give them some context.
Well, we wouldn't have time to dive into each and every one. There's probably hundreds of them.
It's a lot. First of all, let me dive into it. I feel sorry for poor Valeria. She's so polite, intelligent, respectful, and beautiful.
You are polite and intelligent and respectful and beautiful. These are all true statements. Okay. So it's interesting because that particular episode, you and I both left that episode feeling like great, feeling like, it was such a good episode. I remember you and I were so happy about it. And I was actually really surprised at the comments.
Which episode was it? We were talking about
It was the last one we did.
The last one.
Yeah, it was the last one. It was, I'll tell you, hold on. It was...
Okay, it doesn't matter. It was the last episode we talked about.
It doesn't matter. Sure it matters. It's, the title is Get a Prenup, Managing Money with an 18-Year Age Gap. It was over an hour. We were talking for over an hour.
Right. So let's dive into what do you think triggers people about the way you communicate?
So when you and I talk here, we talk like we always talk. We talk like we normally talk. So if people were to be the fly, what's it called? A fly on the wall of a marriage and see how people talk to each other the way they talk to each other. And as an observer outside of a marriage looking in, assuming that the two people are unfiltered and they talk to each other in the same way, then yeah, I mean, when you hear how people who have been together for as long as you and I have been together, how they talk to each other, I guess it might trigger some people. But I'm really surprised. Like I genuinely, when I saw those things, it's not that it bothers me, but it's genuinely surprising to me that people have this perception. And especially it's like they want a man to be a certain way in terms of, protective and to a certain degree a provider.
Like masculine.
They want him to be masculine. Yeah. They want him to be a number of different things. But that comes with, a whole kind
other set of
I don't know.
Tools.
Yeah, but there was a lot of positive comments too.
There's a lot of positive, and we're going to get to the positive. But for me, I want to know if reading the negatives, so you were surprised, but did it made you maybe kind of go and watch the episode and try to understand like what triggered people? Because, sometimes you are you, right? And you've been communicating this way your whole life. So you might feel like the way you speak is normal, but when you get to see yourself through someone else's eyes, they're like a mirror, right? Other people are a mirror. Yeah. Did you kind of notice anything?
I noticed how it could be perceived that way, but I feel that people are looking at it and they're magnifying it kind of through their own perception. And I think they're really projecting their own insecurities. That's what I think. And I'm not saying it to try to like lash out or to, try to get back at people making comments. It really doesn't bother me. It's not something that I really think too much about. But yeah, I feel that there were a lot of insecurities that that I saw. Like, so for example, there was a lot about me interrupting you.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that when you've been together with somebody for as long as you've been together, there are certain cues in conversation where you know it's okay to speak, because you might be in mid-sentence
Mm-hmm.
and I might cut you off because you and I have talked so much over the last almost 14 years that I see where you're going and I'm just carrying the conversation. Like, so it's like a natural flow.
Yeah.
And I could see how people would perceive that if they don't know the context of the last 13 years of us being together and doing everything that we've done together and continue to do together. So I could see that. But to me, I think that I believe that is a immature view
Mm-hmm.
on marriage, and to not take into consideration that these are people who have been together for a long amount of time.
Listen, at the end of the day, you have to take all of these comments with a grain of salt, because it's true. The internet or the content that we put out there is such a small aspect of full lived life. People can't possibly sit there, listen to a conversation and try to think about, all the pieces of the pictures that they can see. So they take it for what it is. And I have to be honest with you, I did notice that you changed a little, not even changed, but you smoothed out certain rough corners of like the way you communicate.
Yeah, but that's wrong. I shouldn't have to do that because...
No, but I think that's great.
Yeah, I don't think that's great. I don't think it's, I'll tell you why. Because for me, if I disagree with something that you or someone else says, it's hard for me to live a life always worried about what somebody else will think or feel. And so myself, not just me, but anyone, people shouldn't have to change who they are in order to accommodate other people.
Absolutely.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
But it's not about changing who you are, because you didn't change yourself, but you refine certain communication.
You're talking about in the period of time since we filmed this, like 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you did. You're just a bit more aware of it. When you're cutting me off or whatever, you move a little bit differently. So I'm just giving you that feedback. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I know that you're like, I don't want to change. I don't want you to change. I don't want you to walk on eggshells. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. When I read the comments and I see people that are getting offended by direct communication, I don't know the household that they grew up in or what society's messaging is now, but to me, direct communication is everything. Like, I don't need you to constantly think about my feelings. Like, I want you to tell me how you really feel, and I take it upon myself to navigate that. And if I feel that you said something that is hurtful, then I'll come to you and I talk to you about it.
And you always do. You always stop me. I mean, yeah, but I can't. Honestly, the amount of times that you've said to me, like just when we're talking in private, when you said to me, hey, like, don't speak to me that way, I could probably count it on one hand, the amount of times that's happened in the last 13 years.
Yeah. And I also know that it's coming from a place where you get yourself riled up. You know what I mean? You get so deep into something where, again, I don't take it personally, but I correct you when I start feeling like it affects me. So I appreciate direct communication. And I don't know if it's because of the environment we grew up in or our culture, but to me, there's nothing worse than thinking about every word that comes out of my mouth with my partner, you know what I mean, with my husband. I'm always on the lookout for nutritious options to add to my daily routine, especially with my protein intake. Oh my God, it's taking over my life. That's why I am so excited to try our next sponsor, Orgain. Orgain is not just any brand, it's the leader in real protein powdered nutrition. And in my opinion, they cracked the code on making food that's both good for you and tastes amazing. Their founder, Andrew Abraham, left his medical practice to create Orgain, driven by the belief that nutrition can and should genuinely improve lives. Personally, for me, I think the emphasis on real nutrition and real food resonates with me so much and drew me to the brand. There's a lot of products out there. A lot of them are it's really difficult to read the labels. So I am getting really picky with my food. And if you follow me on social media, you know that I'm on this journey at the gym trying to build a muscle, and it's not easy. That's why I'm excited to have Orgain at home, but also at the office, because between meetings and podcasts and shooting content, I don't always have the time to sit down and have a balanced, nutritious meal. So these 30-gram protein shakes is my go-to, and I stocked up our fridge to make sure that I get my fix of protein every day. Their shakes have 30 grams of protein, like I mentioned, but also designed to satisfy all of our cravings, support muscle recovery, and best part, it's only 1 gram of sugar. Orgain 30-gram protein shakes are available at Costco and Orgain.com. If you want to get in on the delicious protein-packed nutrition today, head to Orgain.com/Valeria and use code Valeria for 20% off your order. Once again, that's Orgain.com/Valeria for 20% off, and make sure you use my code Valeria so they know I sent you. Enjoy. I am a little surprised, and it actually made me wonder, like, how does marriage and partnership looks like in that environment where you constantly have to be.
Look, I'm a results kind of driven person, and I like to look at reality, as you know, as you and I often talk about. And the fact is that if I look at our marriage, and I try to look at it objectively, even though it may be somewhat difficult to do because I'm in this marriage. When I look at our marriage and I look at just us as a whole, as a family, I consider us to be successful. And I'm not just talking about financially. I mean, that's a very small part of it. But the relationship that you and I have, I feel very fulfilled in our relationship. I believe that you feel very fulfilled in our relationship, and you're nodding, so you're acknowledging that. I believe we've got amazing kids. So the example that we set for our kids when they observe our relationship is obviously a good example, because I strongly believe that kids, especially at the age that our children are at, they'll look at their parents and they kind of model their behavior after their parents. And although they have, like, they're kids, and all kids have their kind of ups and downs, I think our kids are great. The feedback I get from the educators and from people that we know is very good feedback about our kids. So to me, I look at us, and then there's, of course, all of the things that we've accomplished together and that we continue to accomplish together. Mm-hmm. And our ability, by the way, our ability to work together at the level of intensity that we do to push everything forward, all of the interests that we have, all of the business interests that we have, and we still have a marriage that is as good as ours. When you look at that holistically, to me, I believe in results. So I believe when I look at those results of everything that I just described, and I then ask myself these nuances of how we communicate, and, like, to me, it obviously, how we communicate and the way you speak with me and I speak with you, it obviously works. So I understand that the perception of people who watch may be, they're saying there's red flags and this and that and what. Cool. But at the end of the day, results speak. Yeah. So to me, the results are there. Mm-hmm. So I'm not necessarily going to stop communicating with you the way that I do, because if I'm less direct in my communication with you, there's the opposite side where it's going to slow us down. Maybe it'll slow us down. Maybe I won't be as communicative. Maybe, you know what I mean?
I actually think that's a great point that you're saying. Every time we talk about business, one of kind of our mantras, and something that I'm trying to adapt, because that's something that you've been moving in that way for a while, but you're all about moving fast, and you break things on the way when you move fast, but then but there's progress and you can fix those things later, rather than moving slow and being very cautious of everything. Like, that's very difficult to see results and progress in that way. And I think that we act that way in our business, in our communication, and in our overall, I think, even in our decisions, right, about our lives. Like, when we picked up and left to Miami, like, everything was very, we dealt with the challenges as they came along, rather than sit and think about every negative.
You got to take the good with the bad, right? So here, that's an example of me interrupting you. Yeah. Right? So to me, I just want to address that because I don't feel that's me interrupting you. I got your thought. I understood.
I was ready for you to pick it up.
Yeah, and you were ready. But it didn't mean...
We are on the same wavelength.
No, I know, but it doesn't mean that you have to stop talking. I must pause.
Right.
And then continue. So again, this whole interrupting thing, I understand how people are triggered by it, but again, go be married for a long period of time and you'll understand how these things work. Yeah, but sorry, what were you saying?
Exactly. So you interrupted your own thought.
Yes.
I was saying how we live by this mantra of like move fast. And that comes across in the way we move, like in our lives, in our marriage, in our communication, in all things. And I think that's where we see progress. What I was saying is that when you are, and listen, I understand, we live right now at a time where, you know, if you go on social media, everything is about intention and slowing down and all these things, which I love, and I'm trying to find pockets of that throughout my day and throughout my life. But in reality, the world doesn't move like that. And you have to kind of keep up with the world. And when I'm talking about our world as a whole, but also like society, but I'm also talking about our marriage. Because we have such a dynamic marriage and we do so many things together, we have to move slow and we have to communicate in a very like efficient way.
So we have to move quickly, you mean?
Yeah.
You just said we have to move slow.
Oh, so sorry. That's what I meant. I meant we have to move quickly based on the dynamic of our marriage. So it's very different. And I think that a lot of people constantly ask me, like, how are you able to work together and be married and, you know, share all these different things together?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the foundation where we understand and we found the rhythm and language and communication that works for.
But I wouldn't see it. I wouldn't see it. I wouldn't have it any other way. The way that things are set up with you and I, with the business, and how A, we work together, and B, how it's so intertwined into our personal life and our daily life, and with the kids and stuff. To me, I think everything happens for a reason, and you know, I believe that everybody's situation, they manifest throughout the course of their life, and a lot of it is based on their personality and who they are.
Well, I know we're talking about a lot of the negative comments, which there are a lot, but there's also a lot of positive comments. So I
want to dive into the negatives more.
Oh, you want to do more negatives?
Yeah, I have some on my phone too.
Okay, I left the chat at young, beautiful wife.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So people are offended. So this particular person was offended because I said that I have a young, beautiful wife. Yes. That's offensive. Yeah. How is that offensive? How is it offensive for me to make a statement that I have a young, beautiful wife? The thing is, you can't win, right? If I would have said anything to the contrary, then that would have been offensive. But to give you a compliment that you're a young, beautiful woman, that's guys, I can't. I just
want everyone to know that this man will call me young, beautiful woman when I'm 60, 70, and 80.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make that clear. But again, people tying it up to other things in their heads. You know what I mean? So
I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. So yeah, when somebody gets upset because I called you young and beautiful, yeah, I saw a few of those comments. So here's another one. First time listener, I had to stop listening. That man is something else. May the Lord be with you and your kids. He is rude, disruptive, etc. You are better than that. Beautiful.
Why didn't it say young and beautiful? So yeah, you can, people find you to be very harsh.
I don't find myself to be very harsh.
I don't find you to be very harsh either. I want to read this comment because I think this is how I feel.
Okay.
Actually, this dude has his wife's back in the truest form. Reading the comments, it looks like people are reacting to his method of response. He uses a firm, a short tone, yes, and clearly takes no prisoners. My husband's similar and gets misread at times because of it. He's not childish. He cares deeply. So I actually agree with that. That's something that I appreciate about your communication. You're very firm. And at times when I need you to be less firm, I will talk to you about it. But I do enjoy the assertiveness and the reassurance that you provide with your communication. And sometimes, and I started catching you on some stuff. Sometimes you give your opinion, and the way you say it, you are so like dead set on that opinion.
You know why?
Because it's your opinion.
No.
Why?
Because my opinions are typically based on me using logic and facts, where a lot of the opinions that I hear from other people are based on complete fantasies.
That's true too. I don't think people realize how do you call it?
how factual I like
how
to
factual you are. It's actually mind-blowing. So I'll give you an example, you guys. We're driving the kids, doing a drop-off, and we were talking about schools. And I was telling you about this Ivy school in Miami.
It's not an Ivy school. Ivy refers to post-secondary.
Oh, sorry.
But now I'll get
so
attacked for correcting you, but okay.
No, thank you. So it's like a high education.
It's a private school. It's like I think it's like elementary and middle and high school.
Right, but they're very known for their academics.
Correct.
So I told Gary, do we need to look into an environment that has much more academic to it, because this school apparently how do you call it? What is that number? SAT or whatever?
The SAT scores
is very high. And you looked at me and you're like, why do you say that? How do you know? What is the average of Florida? What's the average of Miami? What's the average of the schools?
Right.
Like, you wanted fact.
No, you said to me that the school has a very they're much more academic than other schools. And I said, what does that mean? How are you quantifying that they're much more academic? What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Right? And that's the thing, because what happened was you heard from another mom that this school is much, and I know who you heard it from, our mutual friends, our friends.
No, I heard it from a lot of people.
I know, but
I agree with you. I didn't get into the facts. Like, I didn't have the pure facts to that statement. And this is something that the way you communicate, it's like you need facts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting because last year I felt that our kids, our two older boys, Jake and Ben, I felt that school was too easy for them last year. Mm-hmm. That's not the case this year. Not the case this year. School got harder this year. But last year, or not last year, the year before, I felt that school was too easy. So I contacted the school and I said, hey, I feel like it's too easy for our kids, and their grades seem good, and I'm not seeing any homework. I'm not seeing them stressed out. So I'd like to understand what's going on. So I made an appointment. I went to the school, and they showed me, they have like these test results.
Yeah.
I think it's called a MAP test.
Yeah.
I believe. And they said, this is the average for the state. They showed me, this is the average for the state. This is the average for our school, and our school's average was higher than the state average. Mm-hmm. And then they said, this is the average for Jake and Ben.
Yeah.
And Jake and Ben was higher than the school's average. Mm-hmm. So looking at data, I then was assured that they're academic enough because I look at the results. In a lot of cases, people that we work with, people that we're friends with, people make statements and they make decisions just ignoring reality. And so that's my biggest pet peeve, when people ignore reality.
That is a huge pet peeve for you. And you're schooling me on that. Let's talk about the time when I got my results, and remember they found cyst in my brain.
I thought you said we're not talking about that.
No, we can talk. I mentioned it actually in a solo episode.
Do you want to talk about the conversation we had with the doctor? That's what you want to go there?
But this is a great example of, this is kind of like tough love that you are providing that comes with a lot of education for me.
Sure. But if we tell the story now, then your army's going to come after me again, and they're going to lose their minds.
No, I know, but I'm going to tell the story because maybe the way you're going to tell it is harsher than people can stomach. But
sorry, hold on a second. But again, Valeria, for you to try to then say, like, I shouldn't say something. Let me tell
my story. This is my story. Listen to me.
I know, but to try to censor me because we're worried that, like...
I'm not censoring you. Let me tell the story. Right. As a parent, I don't need to tell you about the mental load that everything requires. So our next sponsor, Nurture Life, makes mealtime for my kids much easier and more enjoyable for me. So if you don't know Nurture Life, they are a meal delivery service focused on helping busy parents easily feed their babies and kids from 10 months to 10 years old. They provide fresh meals and snacks that are delicious, nutritious, and most importantly, fully cooked. That means it's ready to serve in literally 1 minute. As you know, school started, we're back to regular programming, and listen, I needed help in the kitchen. Nurture Life saved me so much stress. The meals arrived quickly, and each one of them was so delicious and really easy to serve. The biggest perk is the fact that the kids get healthy, nutritionally balanced diet and meals while still eating their favorite things like mac and cheese, spaghetti and meatballs, and so many other recipes that are go-to for most parents. So parents can be sure there's always something on the menu that their little ones will love. Nurture Life's mission is to raise the standards for children's food in America, one meal and snack at a time. That's why they're the top meal delivery service for babies and kids. So let me tell you how it works. It's really simple. They have a weekly menu with over 50 varieties of meals, from finger foods for babies to full meals for your older kids. They do all the cooking for you, use fresh, nutritious ingredients, and the meals are packed up and delivered straight to your door. In addition to the meals, they also have on-the-go snacks and superfood smoothies. The smoothies are probably Maxie's favorite. I've been going through a bunch of these meal preps and meal delivery services, and this is one of my favorites, probably because it's designed by registered dietitians. So I know that my kids are getting food that's good for them, but also that they really like. That means I can focus on all the other bajillion responsibilities that I have instead of worrying about what's for dinner. And that is a huge win. It's about time that a flexible meal subscription existed for babies and kids. So all you need to do is head to nurturelife.com and use code Valeria for 55% off your first order. That's right, 55%. Once again, that's nurturelife.com for 55% off. And make sure you use my promo code Valeria so they know I sent you. Enjoy. So I got my diagnosis. They found cyst in my brain when I went to do the full
They didn't
body.
find a cyst in your brain.
They literally found, okay, this is actually on, like I have a proof. So they found cyst in my brain.
So is it called a cyst?
Literally called a cyst, yeah.
It's called a something cyst.
It's called, it says cyst.
Okay.
Every doctor that I spoke to said it's a cyst.
Okay.
So I went to three doctors. I went to three doctors and I showed the results. Our family doctor is like, this is a cyst. This is something that could have been there from the day you were born. And, you know, many people walk around with cysts and they don't know about them. You just happen to have this full body scan and they found it, but it's something that doesn't really do anything, doesn't change your life. Cool. Then I went to Toronto. I had my panic attack. Because I started creating these stories in my head of how the cyst is something else, and it was a misdiagnosis that it's a cyst, and maybe it's something worse. And I was also kind of burned out. Anyways, I connected all the things together.
You were triggered because you got a call or a DM from someone who had some kind of a condition, some kind of a serious condition that you thought was related. So you thought because she had it, therefore you had it too.
I was on a work trip. Thank you. I'm going to bring to context. So after I got the diagnosis about the cyst, I remember in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to go and get a second opinion just to kind of be assured and make sure everything is good. And I didn't do it. Then I had a work trip to Cannes and I met a lovely woman that we started chatting. Yeah. She's also a mom. She has 3 boys. And she started telling me the story how they found something in her brain, and the first doctor that she spoke to, he's like, oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it.
Just like our family doctor told you it's nothing.
Correct. Yeah. And then she started feeling like headaches on one side of her head, and her eyes started twitching. So she went to the doctor. The same day, they put her into surgery. And they basically said that if she didn't come that day, she would have had aneurysm and died. So I'm sitting there. I didn't tell her anything about my cyst, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, what are the chances I'm in the south of France sitting down with this woman that has a very similar, life as mine, and she's telling me about this cyst or whatever it was. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even tell you that I had the same thing happen to me and I have the cyst. And she's like, you have to go and get a second opinion. So again, started building up this anxiety in me. I came back. I again did not attend to it. I didn't go and get the second opinion. I just kind of put it aside because I was too busy. And that's a great lesson for me. So it became like a bigger concern in the back of my mind. I went to Toronto for work. I was already under a lot of stress. And I just had my panic attack. And right away, I'm like, this is it. I'm having an aneurysm. And this is my lesson. So everything kind of transpired and became this huge thing. I called my doctor, I called another doctor, I got a third opinion. Everyone is like, it's a cyst, whatever.
No. They said everyone it's a cyst and it's benign.
And it's benign. Yes. That's
Okay.
an important part. It's benign.
Yeah, you forgot that
But
part.
again,
Yeah.
I have the story of this young woman in my head that has 3
Right.
children that could have died if she didn't go and get that surgery.
Right.
So I come back to Miami, and our friend connected me to another doctor.
Yep.
I already have the diagnosis in my head.
Yeah,
I
but what's
diagnosed
interesting
myself.
is the whole time that you were freaking out,
Yeah.
I was looking at you and I said, the only problem you have is your opinion on this. But in
Yes.
in reality, you've already had 3 doctors tell you that this is benign.
Yeah.
Okay. You've had you had the results of the scan, which I took. I put that through AI and I asked AI everything I could about it. And
Yeah.
AI said, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah, and I spoke to 3 different doctors.
Based on even the size of the cyst, I put
Yes.
all that information in from the scan, from the report.
Yeah.
And
And then I got connected to another doctor here because I wanted to see a neurologist, like a specialist. Because
Yeah.
up until now, I didn't speak to a neurologist. It was all like doctors,
right.
but not a specialty doctor. So I got connected to this guy. He was lovely, picked up my call. I started crying because I'm like stressed out. And basically, I came to you after that conversation. I don't even remember the conversation. I knew that it
With the
just
doctor.
stressed me out with the doctor.
Right.
But I walked into Gary's office at home, and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't fly. I can't do this.
Yeah,
I can't do
because
that.
he told you that we have to do more scans and he's going to look into it and
Yeah.
it's like a serious thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it freaked me out. So I came to you, and you're just sitting there, and you're like, please get me on a call with this doctor.
Yeah.
Get me on a phone with him.
Sure.
And at first, I felt like you were just shutting me down and you're just downplaying my
But I was asking to talk to the
emotional-
doctor.
I
How is
know.
that shutting you down? I'm taking action.
No, I know you're taking action, but sometimes you just want to be like, oh my God, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Which you're not that person. You are like a result-driven person, like an action-driven person.
As soon as you tell me there's a problem,
Yeah, you go into solution mode.
What other mode would you? So here's the thing.
Babe, there's some people that before the solution mode, they sit down and they're just like, they go into this swirl of emotion with their partner or with their friend or whatever. Like they freak out. I grew up in a household like this. What do you mean? You know
So
that.
you just want to waste your time and like talk about
But
nothing?
this is the difference between you and me. So I am coming in and I'm like, and you weren't playing ball. You were just like, get me the doctor on the phone.
Sure. Because any conversation between you freaking out and me talking to the doctor, any of that conversation in the middle is kind of useless, except just
100%.
The only purpose of that conversation in between when you told me there's a problem and me talking to the doctor, that would just serve to comfort you. But how can I comfort you from a position of not having the details and the reality of the situation?
Yeah.
So just to comfort you blindly, like that sounds pretty stupid to me.
I know. And I love that about you.
Am I mansplaining? Because they say I'm a mansplainer. I think that's a sexist comment, to be a mansplainer.
I don't know what it is. To me, it's a logic splainer.
All right.
And you got on a call with the doctor. You asked very specific questions.
Right.
And you asked him for very specific answers. Because he also kind of, shared a lot of information. And you're just like, what is...
No, but you have to tell the context of what the questions were. It's important what the questions were.
Okay, so tell me what questions you asked.
So the first question I asked was, what percentage of people with this diagnosis die? What percentage of them die from this diagnosis? I asked him, what is the mortality rate of this diagnosis? And he said, like 0.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was 0? He goes, yeah, it's like 0. Nobody dies from this. I said, okay, so nobody dies from this. So the first thing I did was I looked at you and I said, you're not going to die. That's the first thing, right?
Yes.
So then I asked him, I said to him, of the people who get this, what percentage of the people have a very like life-altering condition where they're, they can't function or they go through intense pain? It's debilitating in some way. I said, what percentage of people with this diagnosis have that? He's like, well, 0. I'm like, oh, okay.
I don't think it's 0, but it's close to 0.
It was like a fraction of a percent.
Yeah. Anyways, those are all the questions. You asked more questions, but they all alluded to the same thing.
Well, but this doctor said to you that he's going to look into whether or not you should get on an airplane.
Yeah.
And so then I asked him, I said, if you had this diagnosis and you had to go on an airplane in 2 days, would you go on the airplane? And the thing is that he's like, he can't lie. Doctors, I don't believe doctors can lie. I mean, they might, but I don't, that's really like unethical.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I would get on a plane if I had this diagnosis. So then I just said to you, I said, Valeria, you're not going to die. You're not going to have like a debilitating problem or pain, and you can get on a plane.
Yeah.
So where do you see a problem? And 3 other doctors before this doctor told you that it's benign and that there's no problem. So where do you see the problem?
No, so that was a very, this is the kind of like communication that I love that we have. And I think that's something that I'm developing that skill very slowly, but I'm developing it, where it's not driven by emotion, but it's driven by
But you don't
facts
need to.
and logic.
You don't need to develop it because you have me.
I know, but I also want to be that person when like if the kids come to me, you know, because sometimes I do feel like there's too many emotions involved.
Emotions aren't a bad thing. Emotions are necessary. Emotions, you can't live your life just by pure logic, but you just can't ignore logic. Meaning you can have an emotional response to a situation after you get the facts.
Yeah.
Right? To me it's an order of operations.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all it is. It's order of operations. First you get the facts and the data, and then you can form an opinion based on a combination of the facts and your opinion or your emotions or your gut feeling, by all means. So I'm not saying to completely be void of emotions. Emotions are very necessary in decision making, but to do it without facts or reality, I just think is foolish.
I agree. And people need to understand that our like logic center in our family unit, not just me and the kids, but also outside, like with my brothers and with my mom, like you're always kind of the person people go to for like logic and order, because a lot of people run on emotions in our family. Yeah.
But that's, again, everyone's going to get mad at me. But yeah, like, I don't know, children and women often do that. I don't know, like, I'm not trying to be offensive, but yeah, but you need that too. Like you do need that emotion. Are you looking for stuff to read? Because I want to read stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay, so feels like Gary doesn't want Valeria to say she made her money because he'd have to admit how powerful she is and how good she is at generating revenue. I feel that threatens him. It shouldn't. It should just make him feel insanely proud of his wife.
Mm-hmm. I agree. This is interesting.
No, hold on. But I want to talk about this one. What do you mean? I agree.
Wait, read it again.
She said, see, you were not listening to me.
I wasn't. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe my fans will attack you. Feels like Gary doesn't want Valeria to say she made her money, in quotes, her money, because he'd have to admit how powerful she is and how good she is at generating revenue. I feel that threatens him. It shouldn't. It should just make him feel insanely proud of his wife.
That's so crazy that that was the opinion.
Well, no, but I probably made a statement that I disagreed with you, that you said that you make your own money.
Right.
Because the way I see our marriage, since the day we got married, we make our money together.
Yeah.
It's just the same. It's the same thing that
with my kids and our kids.
When you say my kids, it bothers me too, because to me I see marriage as a complete partnership and a union, an equal partnership.
Yeah, but this is
equal partnership with varying roles, different roles.
Yeah,
but it's still an equal partnership.
This is the remainings from the feminist like movement, right? Like the old school feminists. I think actually feminism is changing, and it's hopefully going to look different and more of a collaboration rather than a competition. But I understand where it's coming from. I understand that for someone, especially based on how they grew up, seeing like a man is scared of like powerful women, or is trying to put a powerful woman down, things like that. You know what I mean?
No, but I wasn't putting you down.
No, of course not. It's nothing to do with you. You're a mirror to that.
No, I understand.
To those beliefs.
So here's the thing. So in marriage, right? So in marriage, when people are progressing together and accomplishing together and having children together and making money, by the way, when it comes to making money, even if one of the partners has their own career, like their own, not like you and I where we have a business together, but a completely separate career, even when somebody has a completely separate career, I would still say that they're making money together. I think for a man to make a statement, let's say a man is a lawyer and a woman is at home with the kids and she doesn't have like a traditional career. For him to say, I made this money, I also think is incorrect.
Well, yeah.
So maybe I didn't provide that context when in the last episode when I said to you, I don't agree with you saying I made money or it's my money. It's the same thing that if a man has a career and the woman doesn't and she stays at home and he says, I made this money.
Yeah.
I would never, if you and I were like more of a traditional couple, let's say, and I had a job somewhere, you would never hear me say, I made money. I always say in the context, we made money.
You actually did do that from the beginning. Since we got together.
Before you started in social media too,
before, 100%. I remember when instances where we're sitting at a dinner table with friends and, some husbands will comment things like, my money or I made this money while she's not doing anything. I've never been in that position.
Yeah, to me that dude is a piece of shit.
Yes, you always...
Because he's belittling his wife.
Correct. You always speak in a very we manner about everything. And that was from the beginning.
Yeah.
When we got together, you sold a piece of your company. I didn't come into this marriage with any financials. So you never made me feel like that's something that...
Of course not.
This is yours and this is mine.
Well, but because we were married, that's it.
Right.
To me, we got married, we were one. That's it. And we still are. We're just one. So I believe that when you hear a response like this from somebody who's watching that last episode and they made the comment of, they were upset about the fact that I don't like it when you refer to money as my money and even like my kids. I don't think they understood the full context of it. And maybe I didn't provide the full context of it, but that is the reality that in a marriage, once two people are together, everything is mutual. Everything is ours. The losses, the accomplishments, everything is together.
It's very sexy.
Is it?
Such a traditional man. Yes.
No, but I see
I really love it. I think with the years, I know that there's a lot of progress everywhere and things are changing and the roles and everything, changing within marriage and construct, all of it. But there's nothing that makes me I love you so much for continuing to stand your ground and provide that all the aspects of a traditional marriage with tweaks of, modern take where we need to upgrade certain things and certain beliefs we do. But it's just you provide this strong foundation.
Thank you. I think it's as inappropriate for you to make claims that something is yours in the context of our life together.
Yeah.
As it would be for me to say it. The thing is that if a woman says it, it's okay. But if a man, the same person who's upset about me calling you out on saying it's my money, I made this money, if I were to say that, that person would call me out and say, hey, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a double standard. And I believe that people who make these comments, like the women who make these comments, they're talking from their own insecurity. They're talking
from what they've seen.
Or from what they've seen, yeah.
Growing up,
but
100%.
Hold on, there's more comments.
I'm so excited to talk to you about something that's made a huge difference in my life and in my kitchen, Green Chef. The seasons are changing and fall is upon us, and this is the time to whip out the fall decorations, but also the seasonal flavors. I'm talking about squash, cranberries, pumpkin. So delicious. Green Chef delivers fresh organic ingredients right to your door so you can create restaurant-worthy meals without the fuss. So I just recently tried their beef tenderloin with truffle cream recipe. Amazing. Definitely my favorite. No, wait, there's actually the garlic honey chicken is my favorite. So there's a few of them in the mix. They have so many options on their weekly menu and it's really hard to choose one favorite meal, as you can see. But what I love is that they're not just tasty, they're also guilt-free. So they're featuring wholesome ingredients that make you feel really good about yourself and your life and your choices. Plus, everything is pre-portioned and ready to cook, which saves so much time. Go to greenchef.com/Valeria50 and use code Valeria50 for 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next 2 months. That's code Valeria50 at greenchef.com/Valeria50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next 2 months.
I was 10 minutes into listening to your podcast on Spotify, and I just couldn't do this anymore. Turns out I'm not alone. It's unbearable to listen to because of Gary's continuous, pseudo-intelligent, snarky remarks. I don't think he let Valeria finish a single sentence without correcting her. Valeria fended off the comments with awkward laughter just to somehow finish her thoughts. Typical mansplainer. I hope they both reflect on their relationship dynamic. I don't have anything to say on that. I think I don't know. I don't know what to say to that.
We're sitting and reflecting, babe. We're doing it.
No, but I don't think that that's the case. I mean, it's interesting that that was their perception. Oh, here's a good one. So remember on the last episode when you said finance girl?
Yeah.
And I corrected you and I said, like, why is it
Right.
why is it a finance girl? Like, it should be a finance person, right? You shouldn't attach a gender to a career, because in finance you could be a girl, you could be whatever. You could be a man, you could be a woman. What's the difference? So somebody wrote policeman, fireman, mailman, but she can't say finance girl. He's showing his true colors. So me, who's fighting for equality, I'm showing my true colors.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, you can't do nothing.
That's so funny. Here, look at this.
Ooh, here's a controversial. I have a controversial take on this one, but yeah, give me.
Okay, this one. I don't think Gary's coming from a bad place. He definitely wants the best for her. Does it sometimes feel like he's talking down to her, like teaching a child? Yes, but let's not forget that it's their personal relationship. They've been together for many years and we only get brief moments to listen and judge. So let's not assume we know better than Valeria.
But why wouldn't I talk to you? Like, why wouldn't I talk to you in a tone where, like, if I'm teaching you something, why wouldn't I talk to you in that tone? But if you're teaching me something, why wouldn't you would talk to me in the same way? I don't know. If people are together and I'm trying to give you the benefit of knowledge that I have, I'm going to explain things to you. Hold on.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt me, because that's not nice.
Okay, yeah.
No, but if I was to try to transfer some information or knowledge or teach you something, and I talk to you in an instructional tone, maybe even the way I just said instructional tone, people would take offense.
Yeah.
I'm just being precise.
Yeah.
If you were to talk to me and explain something to me, like, I don't know, like when you were explaining to me about, like the benefits of, let's say, attending certain events in the world, in our industry, which I agreed with you, but you were conveying to me that, and I think that if people heard that conversation, they might also perceive it. But again, I believe the women who are listening to this, they're looking at it with this like weird bias and weird filter.
It's not even it's ego. So it's the ego that is acting up, and it's natural.
Because women feel that they've been oppressed all these years?
Yeah. Okay. And I think it's a big messaging in society in general. That's what I'm saying. That's the old school feminism. And I think that we're changing it because now there's obviously things have changed and women are much more independent and are able to move in the ways they wanted to move, which before they couldn't. They still can't in some parts of the world, right? So I think it's coming from there, and women just become very protective and very on guard when they start feeling those nuances, if it's in the tone of voice, if it's in the way men speak to them. So I don't think it's something personal against us. I think it's just...
Well, not against us, against me.
Against you. I think it's... Oh, you see? Not you, us. But I think it's just the way that it's been. But what I want to say that I think it's so important... Maybe to some people, your tone of voice feels like you're teaching me something. But to me, the tone of voice is less important. Like if we're talking about nuances, like if you talked a little softer, then it's a wonderful moment. Like to me, I don't care because I'm getting a benefit from hearing from you sharing your knowledge with me. And that to me is so much more valuable than what verbato you use. Is that a word, verbato?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Verbato. You know what I mean? Like the exact tone of like if it's softer, if it's harsher, because I kind of see the point. I see the value of what you're trying to say.
I understand.
So I obviously there's a boundary, there's limits of if you're being completely like a jerk, I would be like, okay, jerk down. No, like, you know what I mean?
Jerk down?
Tone it down.
Tone it down, you jerk.
and fix your tone of voice. But otherwise, it's such, I feel like the focus needs to go to a more important aspects of the conversation.
Yeah, again, because I feel like you're not ego driven. Here's an interesting one. I wonder if they divorced, could Gary date a woman his age? I suspect she would have to be way younger, as his personality is on the domineering corrective teacher side, as per what we were talking about. If a fully confident woman was interacting with him, she would not placate him the way Valeria does. I don't know what placate means.
I don't know either.
I guess he'd have to find a 20s something again.
So, you know what? This is interesting to me. This whole aspect of, because I heard it before as well, where people were like, oh, he found someone young to marry so he can mold her, or he can kind of, build his own version of the wife that he wanted, which is very interesting to me, because I think that in general, when two people come together, doesn't matter the age, there is already a personality, there's a way of being, and two people mold into each other to become, to make it a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are girls that you can get, if it may be mail order bride, where you can kind of, put preferences, but I don't come from that place. Our relationship didn't start from that place. Like I was already.
I didn't mail order you?
You didn't mail order me. And I already came and changed based on our life together and my own personal development. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is there's nothing wrong with changing and molding yourself into this unit together.
Mm-hmm.
That happens. It happened to you. It happened to me as well. And I don't think age has anything to do with it. I actually think that when you say something, if a strong, confident woman, if he married someone older, she wouldn't let him speak to her that way. That's why there's a lot of single older women, because it is, again, ego driven. It's constantly you're on defense mode.
Right.
You know what I mean? The actual message and actual partnership. Well, because I think that people assume that younger women are easier to impress and maneuver, which to some extent, yes, there's a lot of women that are in their early 20s. They're still trying to find themselves and identify themselves. No, so that's, I think, where the prey is coming, that idea of predator is coming from, right?
No, but look, at the end, I understand. But at the end of the day, both people are adults. Regardless of their age difference, they're adults. So if a woman is 20, you were 20 years old, I was 38.
I don't think you're considered an adult at 20. I think you're an adult when your frontal cortex is fully developed, which is 27, 26.
You're talking
frontal lobe.
You're talking about fact?
Absolutely, it's a fact.
Okay. I won't challenge that because I don't know. I don't know the data on it.
Ask ChatGPT, your best friend. Yeah, so I don't think you're not an adult. But I also think...
Do you feel I took advantage of you when you were 20 years old?
Absolutely not. But that's what I'm saying is you need to have, if you're 19, if you're 20, if you're dating someone that's younger than you, your age, or, older, it doesn't matter. You can have a predator in a relationship, even if it's your own age.
Correct.
You need to have the intuition and the self-awareness and understanding of your values and, feeling what kind of connection you have in order to move forward. So I don't think it's an age thing. But I think that a lot of people get triggered by this whole age difference because of that, because they're like, oh, look, she was so young and innocent and didn't know anything. And he just came and he took, it's like a big wolf, You're mine.
No, but you had free will. And all
course.
And all young women do.
And the best decision I made in my life, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. But what's interesting is that, people have this negative connotation to it, and to age differences when the man is so much older. But what the funny thing is that if it was reversed, the same critics, quite frankly, the women who are making comments like this, if they saw a reverse situation where the man was younger and the woman was significantly older.
No, it's a conversation going on because there's someone famous that was dating this really young kid.
Right. I just don't believe that in the comments there'd be this reaction. I don't believe that public opinion would be like, she's a predator, and so there is.
Definitely less, but there is. But again, it's just like this old school, this conversation is so old that it's
Look, at the end of the day, it's to each their own, right?
But you know what I wanted to mention, which was very interesting to me, that you said that a woman your age is more of like, how do you call it? You say like if you were date someone your age, it would be like someone. My mom is older than you by 2 years, but basically the same
By
thing.
a year and a half.
By a year and a half, which is crazy. But yes, I agree with you. Women, especially as we get older, we get harder. Do you know what I mean? We harden.
All people do. Through life experience, that we all do, of course.
I know. And I think that's where it happens, where you realize as a older, mature woman that you are great on your own, and you start getting very comfortable in this lifestyle, that it gets very difficult for someone to get in. Where I think with someone who's younger, they're a bit more open to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess. I think it comes down to each their own.
Listen, straight up, if I wouldn't have met you at 20 and married at 21, I would have been single today.
How do you know that?
I honestly always knew. I'm like, I'm not going to get married. I'm going to be like a single 30-something-year-old, and I'm going to live my best life. That was the other kind of something that I predicted more to happen than what happened with us.
So then when you met me, how did you kind of reconcile this huge tangent in your life where you had seen...
Even my mother is super surprised. She's like, I thought you were going to be single for a very, very long time.
No, I know, but how did you reconcile that? Going so far off your kind of planned path. Like, I must have been very special if I was able... No, but seriously.
Intuition, honestly, it was very intuitive for me. That's why I think it was so easy. Just like how everything developed.
Mm-hmm.
My intuition said that you are my person, and you'll be a person that I will grow with and build a home with. And it was just very simple.
Okay. I want to read the next comment. This is a nice one. Gary is just a provider and a protector. There is nothing wrong with that. He's rough around the edges. By that I mean how he expresses himself. But I can tell he loves his wife and kids. He acknowledges that his accomplishments are also due to Valeria's support. You guys are twisting this whole dynamic.
Anything else that was interesting to you?
I may be wrong, but it feels like he's with her only because she looks well. He always emphasizes the fact that she is a young wife. It looks like a major red flag because she won't be young forever.
You know what I love? I love that that's an issue, that you emphasize that I'm young and beautiful. That's so funny to me.
Yeah, I'm a jerk.
You're a jerk.
I'm a jerk for saying that you're young and beautiful. Like, it's funny, no, because the person is saying that it's a flag because he values her youth and her beauty. Why wouldn't I value your youth and your beauty?
Yeah. Like, enjoy it while it lasts.
It's going to last forever.
That's true.
I know, but it's just funny to me that people get offended because I value your youth and beauty. Like, it's a problem. It's a problem that I find value in that.
Listen, I think that you are an alpha male, and I don't think there's a lot of...
I don't consider myself an alpha male, but
really?
Okay.
What do you think is the definition for alpha male for you? Like,
I think it's a ridiculous term. What does that even mean?
Okay, so how would you label yourself?
I'm just a guy. I don't know. I'm just a normal guy. I'm just like a normal, everyday kind of guy. It is. There's even a song about like normal, everyday kind of guy. Yeah, that's me. I'm just a normal dude. I like my normalcy. Oh, here's another one. Mansplaining in all its glory. It's even hard to watch. Wow. It's hard to watch.
Listen, I appreciate, and I wanna kind of wrap this conversation up. I appreciate people taking the time to leave these comments, even if they're negative, because I do enjoy that aspect of social media. I know a lot of people are, and maybe in the beginning, myself included, I was very wary of those, and I would take them personally. But when I go through these comments, I really have a better understanding of what's going on in the world and with people, and gives me also insight into our relationship from the outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's do this. Okay, love you guys. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks,
and I
guys.
cannot wait to see the comments. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't miss my newest episode right here. And if you're listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, please go and leave a review with your biggest takeaway. I love reading your thoughts. And if you have any suggestions for guests or topics, you can leave them in the comment section. And always remember, you are not alone.